Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing 200 days in RLCraft. Before you watch this video, I'd really recommend watching my first 100 days so you'll understand what's happening. So let's get right to the video. Day 101, I had to remember everything that had happened, and I also had this weird heart glitch where my hearts wouldn't regenerate. After a few minutes of trying to figure out what was happening with my hearts, I decided to go outside and get healed. This didn't help either. Luckily, after sleeping in the bed, my hearts regenerated and I went off exploring. My goal was to find an ice biome so I could find and fight my first ice dragon, and on day 3 I found one. At first, I couldn't find any ice dragons at all, but after a little bit more searching, I found a dead one. I spent the night in the skies because I didn't want to land or go back and lose my spot. Day 104, I went near this lava so I'd warm up because I had hypothermia, and after doing so, I found 2 dragons. It was my first time fighting 2 dragons at once, so I really didn't know what to expect, but to my surprise, the fight was pretty easy because they shot ice instead of fire, and I guess it didn't do as much damage. I was eventually knocked off my rock, and I thought this would be a lot harder, but it was actually a lot easier because the dragons just ignored me and flew in a pattern. Once I killed the ice dragons, I looted all the silver from both of their areas, and then I looted them. They just gave me the same loot as normal dragons. Day 105, I went into this little thing because I knew that there would be a lot of mobs underground. I was correct. The reason I wanted to fight mobs is because I was bored and because I wanted more XP. Day 6, I was still farming mobs when the weirdest thing happened. I killed a spider that somehow gave me a bow. I don't really understand it, but it did happen. Day 107, I was starting to get bored of fighting all the mobs, so I decided that I would go out soon. So that's just what I did, so on day 8, I left. I ended up finding this cool village with a battle tower next to it, and even though I'm pretty far into the game, battle towers always have the best loot. Day 109, I found these 2 cool looking buildings, but after exploring them, they had really bad loot. Day 110, I found this really cool looking statue. I thought it would have good loot because it was so cool looking, but it had absolutely nothing inside it. It was just a thick cobblestone statue. Day 111, I found this really cool looking dungeon and I wanted to kill more mobs. I wanted to try an MLG water, but this cobweb helped me because I knew I would have failed. After killing some zombies, I learned that there was a secret way to an even lower dungeon which was themed like the nether. I was really happy to find this because it meant that I could possibly find wither skeletons and get their skulls to summon the wither without even having to go into the nether fortress. I wasn't able to find any wither skeletons on day 12, but by the end of day 13, I was able to find some. I don't have any video of this because it was so chaotic that I couldn't even see what I was fighting. On the way out of the nether dungeon, I found this really cool thing. I knew that it was one of the boss arenas, so I decided to go in. Before I found any boss, there was this weird looking thing that just jumped on my head like they do in Aliens. It was really cool, and I just stared at it for a while, but then I got annoyed, so I knocked it off. Day 115, I found the Chaos Serpent, which was one of the bosses. He had very low health, which was very disappointing because I thought it would be a hard fight. I decided I would leave this area because I was getting bored, and I found this really cool looking wall. So on day 16, I climbed over the wall and landed down. I didn't see that there was a dragon in it, somehow under the cobblestone, and it had gotten out, but I was noticing it soon. Dragon was a tier 2 dragon, and it definitely wasn't hard, but it was still very surprising that it was in there. On day 117, I was exploring this cool village, and I was also testing how much damage an iron golem does to me. Turns out it doesn't even show up. Day 118 through 120, I looted all the chests in the area. There were a lot of them, and I was hoping to get something good, but everything was bad. Day 121, I decided I would leave that village, that gigantic village, because it was too boring. Day 122, I decided I would make a new room in my house because it felt small and I wanted it to be bigger. I decided I wanted villagers to trade with in this room, so on day 123, I went out and put some villagers in boats. Luckily, my base was close to a village, so by day 124, I was able to bring them back safely. Day 125, I got bored of putting villagers in boats and bringing them to my house, so I decided I would just trade with them on day 126. Not many of them had good stuff, but I decided to make a sugarcane farm so I could trade paper with them. I didn't get that many emeralds, but I did get enough to make me happy. Day 128, I decided that since I had some wither skulls and some soul sand, I would go out and fight the wither. What I didn't know is that I couldn't fight the wither for some reason. I didn't know it yet, but I guess you can't fight the wither if there's any blocks underneath any of the arms. And that includes snow, and it also includes grass. I didn't know this until about 5 days later, which is almost 2 hours of real life time. But for some reason, instead of trying to figure out that information earlier, I decided I would go to the nether because I thought that in RLCraft, withers would spawn in fortresses with a wither spawner. I still don't even know if this is true, but it does sound pretty far-fetched. On day 130, I just looked for a fortress. On day 131, I did find a fortress, and it was very open, which I was very happy about because I didn't want to have to land. Sadly, my rock was killed pretty early, so I did have to land. I realized that there was no wither spawner in there, and I ended up leaving. I also got really afraid because I forgot that I had fire resistance from my dragon's eye. On day 132, I found this ruined portal type thing, but it's in a version of Minecraft before ruined portals, so I guess they thought about it before the actual Minecraft people did. I went through it to see where it would take me. It took me nowhere, which was very disappointing. I decided that I would dig up to get out of this place. What I didn't know is that it would be digging up over a mountain, so it would take me very long. But once I did, I used my return potion, and I got home. Day 133, I knew what I was supposed to do to summon the wither now. I wasn't going to make any more mistakes, so I placed an extra block on the bottom to make sure there were no blocks under it. And it worked. I could finally fight the wither. Because I was in RLCraft and had RLCraft gear, it was almost impossible for the wither to do any damage or even survive very long to me. The only annoying part was that it did make my screen very blurry, which was hard to aim. But its wither effect disappeared so early I didn't even have to worry about it. I think I lost a total of 2 hearts during this battle. But I was very happy to get my nether star. On day 134, I decided that I wanted to craft some armor stands to put armor in one of my rooms. My plan was to get every single armor in the game, and I had most of them, so on day 135, I was able to craft as many as I had. It wasn't all of them. I didn't have the Golem armor or a few other minor armors I don't know how to get, but it was a good collection. On day 136, I went to the end to find an elytra. It took me some time, and I really had no need in finding an elytra, but I did find this cool looking battle thing, so I went there instead. Day 137, I fought Nightshade, which was a lot harder than the other bosses in this area, even though it did barely any damage. It was more than 4 shots, which I was happy about. Although sadly it did very little damage and didn't even render up the damage, so I didn't even have to worry about it. On day 138, after searching around this place a lot longer, I found another boss. I think I'd fought in this one only a few days earlier, and it had very little health, so it was disappointing. On day 139, I found my first end city. I was very happy to find this, and I didn't really need anything, but I did want the shulker shells, the crafting ruins, and the elytra. For those of you who don't know, crafting ruins are a way to get really good loot that is specified to your world. It kind of doesn't make sense, but it will let me get Golem armor, which is the best armor in the game, and is very hard to get. Still on day 139, I looted some chests. I had over a stack of diamonds now, which I was happy about, and I killed a lot more shulker boxes. It is day 40 now. It was really hard for me to keep track of time in the end because there wasn't day or nights, but I just used a timer. I also got this thing called a shulker heart. It was really good because it would make me immune to levitation. On day 141, I found another end city and got another elytra. Just like the other one, I probably wasn't going to use it, but it was good to have. On day 142, I used this little thing to get me home. I realized that it brought me to this area, so I had to fight a few mobs, but I did make it home. I decided I would make another room and theme it end-themed, because I really liked all the bricks that I got from the end. It took a while to make it, but eventually I cleared out enough space. But I guess I didn't clear it fast enough, because as I was clearing it out, I got my first event in RLCraft. If you don't know what events are, they're just things that happen where they spawn random mobs. I was really excited to get my first event, because I'd never had one before. Sadly, it didn't spawn any more mobs. Shortly after realizing no mobs were spawning, I got a notification saying that Root Riot no longer spawns mobs. This was very upsetting, but I did finish my room on day 144. Or I didn't finish it, I just used all my bricks. On day 145, I was able to get an advanced ruin reader so I could read my ruins and maybe get Golem armor. I got a bunch of bad things that I didn't want and were too expensive, but then eventually I got golem boots. Well, I didn't get the golem boots, I knew how to make golem boots now. I had all the materials to make it, but sadly I had to use my nether star, so I was gonna have to go and kill more withers later. On day 146, I'd made my first piece of golem armor. I was so happy, and I put it on the armor stand, and it looked terrible. It just looked like a tiny flat piece. I was really hoping the other armors didn't look like this. On day 147, I decided I would go out looking for more ruins. Eventually, I found this underground thing. I had found one earlier on in the first 100 days, but I didn't know what ruins were yet, so I didn't get any of them. I don't even know if this was a different one, but I did get a lot of ruins. And then I really thought that I'd found some sort of ocean monument, which I really liked because I found this guardian. And then I got the Elder Guardian mining fatigue. But then I realized that it was just in this dungeon thing. On day 148, I started checking all my ruins if they had anything good. I also realized that it was snowing. I didn't really understand how it was snowing in this biome, but it was. I ended up getting the golem chestplate, and I realized that it was winter because this game somehow has seasons. And because it was so cold in winter and I would probably freeze, I decided it'd be a great time to make a new room, and I really wanted to make a big one. So that's why I spent 10 days making this room. I also got attacked by this thing because I forgot I had night vision that it was actually really dark in the room. The reason I didn't want to go outside is because I didn't put any sort of Aussie warmer or anything else that would keep me warm and cool on my chest plate. I'd put it on diamond armor instead when I got it, which was very upsetting. I did clear out enough space, but I didn't know what to put in it yet. Luckily for me, shortly after I realized I wanted to make it nether themed. In honor of the cold, I wanted to do the opposite of cold, because that's just how I am. I went to the nether and started looking for random places to destroy bricks. On day 161, I found the cool boss thing instead, so I obviously had to fight some bosses. Just like for the other 161 days, the bosses in these things were very easy. I did find another one of these little portal things, but I didn't want to go in it because it brought me nowhere. But then I realized that I should have gone in it because I was low on water, and you couldn't have water in the nether. On day 162, I was so dehydrated that I needed to get back to that little thing I'd left, the portal thing. I didn't know what would happen if I got all the way down to my thirst, but knowing the game that RLCraft had, I probably thought I would die. So I used my recall potion to get back to my house, and immediately went to some water in order to drink it. On day 164, I wanted to see if I could see the sky from my base again, so I started to clear out some of the snow. I decided to stop because I realized that the snow would just fill up again by the next day. So I went back inside. On day 165 to 171, I created my nether room. I had a lot of nether material, so I was planning on making it very big and very cool. Part of me was afraid that nether mobs would start to spawn in it, but then I knew that it was in the nether and it probably didn't matter about the bricks. But when I came down to it, I realized that there were these really weird things in it. Well, they weren't weird, they just happened whenever there was fire or lava, which I happened to have in it. They also killed some of my villagers, which was very upsetting. At the end of day 172, I just put some iron doors until I realized what I would do with them. On day 173, I knew what I would do. The lava didn't really matter with them, but I did have to destroy all the little fire blocks that I'd put. Once destroying all the fire, no more of them spawned, which was very good, but I did have no more good lighting. So on day 174, I built this weird little glowstone thing, the type that you see in the nether. Mine didn't look as good, but it would do for now. On day 175, I decided I needed to summon a wither, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to go fight the endgame bosses. Because I didn't have hyperthermia this time I fought the wither, it was so much easier, so I just did it again. This time I made it even easier by running in the water, which I had extra boosts in. Because of this, I did so much damage to the wither, and it barely even hit me. I would have fought it many more times, but I didn't have enough wither skulls, so I just didn't. Now that I had all the materials, on day 176, I was preparing to fight one of the 3 endgame bosses of RLCraft, named Asmodius. I think I pronounced that right, but if I didn't, let me know in the chat. On day 177 to 183, I prepared and actually fought Asmodius.
Asmodius, the demonic mastermind.
Yep, that sounds creepy. And it built me this cool arena, so I could probably use that later if I wanted to. Once I'd killed him, for some reason I just started pushing random keys. That's why I did that weird stuff. I collected all my loot from Asmodius and got my way back home. Once I got home, I realized I got 4 nether stars from defeating him. I didn't know I would get 4. I knew that I had to spend one to get him, but I didn't know I would get more from beating him. On day 185, I was able to make a golem helmet. I was very happy at this because now all I needed were the leggings. From days 186 to 190, I spent a very long time enchanting and unenchanting. This is because if I unenchanted, I would get those books, and if I combined the books, I could get better books, and then I would stick those on my golem armor once I got the leggings. I wanted to do this now because I didn't want to forget about it later. It took a while, but in the end, it was worth it. By the end of day 90, I had almost half a chest full of OP books. On day 191, I destroyed this glowstone thing because I didn't like how it looked. I then decided I wanted to go to the end again, so on day 192 I did. And on day 193 I found another ender city, and I went in and collected some of the loot. I found an Aussie warmer, which would be really useful. I was going to save it for my golem armor, so I wouldn't waste it on my Tide Guardian armor. I also decided I wanted to collect a bunch of the bricks from the end city, in case I ever wanted to make my end room look better. I then tried to MLG water again. I think I failed, but I'm not really quite sure because I didn't lose any hearts. Leaving the end city, I realized that there was some sort of end dungeon thing nearby, so on day 194 I went inside of it. I realized they would be a lot harder than the overworld ones of these, because the mobs actually were probably harder than the bosses themselves. Since this thing wasn't underground, I realized that on day 195 I could just walk on top of it and find where the bosses were. Soon after, I realized that I really shouldn't have done this, because if any of the mobs, though they don't damage me, had hit me off, I would have been done forever. Luckily, I realized this pretty quickly and dug down. Then, on day 196, I finally found my first boss here. I defeated this boss 3 other times in these 200 days, so it was getting boring. So I went home. Somehow when I got home, I was at less than half my hearts. There was nothing that had hit me or could do that much damage, but I was kind of worried that there was some sort of glitch. So immediately after, I went outside and started getting healed. After getting healed just a little bit, I realized that I had less than 3 days left, and my goal was to be able to hatch a dragon every 200 days. So that's exactly what I tried to do on day 198. On day 199, my dragon still hadn't hatched, and I was getting bored of waiting, so I just did this. I wanted to be in the room when my dragon hatched, and I didn't just want to stand there. I was getting really worried that my dragon wouldn't hatch on time, as I only had 25 minutes left in this entire series. But luckily for me, with only 10 minutes remaining, I finally got my dragon. It was asleep and it was so tiny. I put it on my shoulder and got the thumbnail for this video. And that's 200 days in RLCraft. You must be a really big fan in order to stay to the end. Tell me if you stay to the end. And if you have any tips for me, put them in the comments down below as well. Thank you for watching. Bye.